When my sister-in-law drew a line and declared I wasn't real family, I respected her boundary. But when she desperately needed a family favor, I made her live by the cruel rules she created. There are two kinds of family, the one you're born into and the one you marry into. I thought I'd won the lottery with both. My own family is wonderful, and when I married my husband, Mark, I was so excited to gain a sister in his, Brenda. I'd always wanted a sister. What I got instead was a gatekeeper. From day one, Brenda made it clear that I was an outsider, a temporary fixture in her brother's life. Everything I did was scrutinized, from the way I loaded the dishwasher to the way I decorated our home. But the real battleground, the one she chose to draw her line in the sand over, was my relationship with her son, my nephew, Liam. Liam is 4 years old, and he is the absolute sunshine of my life. From the moment he was born, I was smitten. I learned his favorite dinosaur, the correct way to cut his sandwiches, no crusts, diagonally, and the silly voice he liked for his bedtime stories. And he loved me back with the pure, uncomplicated adoration of a child. He'd run to me the second I walked into a room, his little arms outstretched, yelling, "Auntie!" It was a sound that made my heart swell, and it was a sound that apparently made Brenda's stomach turn. The breaking point came at a family barbecue last summer. It was one of those perfect golden afternoons. The air smelled like cut grass and charcoal, and the sound of kids laughing filled the backyard. I was pushing Liam on the swing, making silly airplane noises as he soared into the air, his giggles echoing around us. He was having the time of his life. Brenda watched us from the patio, a tight, artificial smile plastered on her face, her arms crossed over her chest like a sentinel. Later, I was helping Liam build a magnificent tower out of plastic blocks when he looked up at me with his big chocolate-brown eyes and said, "Auntie, you're my best friend." I felt my throat tighten with emotion. I hugged him and said, "You're my best friend too, sweetie." That's when Brenda pounced. She walked over, plucked Liam from my lap as if I were contaminated, and said, "Okay, that's enough. Mommy needs to talk to her." The way she said her dripped with disdain. She sent Liam inside to his grandpa and then turned to me, her smile gone, replaced by a cold, hard glare. "We need to get something straight," she said, her voice low and sharp. "I've let this auntie thing go on for long enough, but you're confusing him." I was floored. Confusing him? How? She let out a short, condescending laugh. "You're not his aunt." "Not a real one. You're just the woman my brother married. An aunt is blood. My sister, if I had one, would be his aunt. My husband's sister is his aunt. You're a role player, and I need you to stop The world seemed to grind to a halt. The cheerful sounds of the party faded into a dull buzz in my ears. Every happy memory I had with Liam flashed through my mind, now tainted by her words. I looked over at Mark, who was at the grill and had missed the exchange. I was completely alone. My voice was barely a whisper. He calls me Auntie. And you will correct him, she snapped. From now on, you're just Sarah. Got it? She didn't wait for an answer. She just turned on her heel and walked back to the patio, leaving me shattered next to a half-finished block tower. From that day on, I put up a wall. I was polite, but distant. I stopped offering to babysit, stopped buying him little just because gifts, and when he called me Auntie, a piece of my heart broke as I'd gently say, "It's Sarah, honey." The light in his eyes dimmed a little each time. Months passed in this cold new reality. Then, one frantic Tuesday afternoon, my phone rang. It was Brenda. I almost let it go to voicemail, but some morbid curiosity made me answer. Her voice was nothing like the smug, controlled tone I was used to. It was high-pitched, panicked, and she was talking a mile a minute. "Sarah, oh my God, thank God you answered. I'm in a massive bind, a huge one. My regular sitter just canceled, my parents are out of town, and Mark's sister-in-law, I mean my husband's sister, is sick. I have a final career-making interview in an hour for the job of my dreams, and I have absolutely no one to watch Liam. I know we've had our issues, but I am begging you, can you please come over? I desperately need a babysitter." I stood there in my quiet kitchen, listening to her frantic plea. I thought about the barbecue, the sting of her words, and the sadness in my nephew's eyes for the last few months. I let the silence hang in the air for a long, delicious moment, allowing her to really squirm. Finally, I took a deep breath and prepared to give her the answer she so richly deserved. "Oh, Brenda," I said, my voice syrupy sweet, dripping with a mock sympathy that was so thick I could almost taste it. "That sounds like a truly terrible situation. A career-making interview, you say? That's so important. You must be incredibly stressed." "Stressed doesn't even cover it," she said, the relief in her voice palpable. She thought I was on her side. "I'm about to pull my hair out. So you can come? You're only 10 minutes away. I can be out the door the second you get here." I let the silence hang again, just for a second. "Well, that's the thing, Brenda. I'm afraid I can't help you." The silence that followed was of a different kind. It was cold and sharp. "What? What do you mean you can't help me? Why not? Do you have plans?" "No, no plans at all," I said cheerfully. "My afternoon is wide open. But, you see, I'm just not the right person for this particular job. You need someone you can trust, someone responsible, someone familial. I could practically hear the gears grinding to a halt in her head. "Sarah, what are you talking about? Liam adores you. Just get over here." "No, I don't think you understand," I continued, my voice firm and clear, leaving no room for argument. "You made the rules very clear to me last summer. I am not an aunt, not a real one. I'm just Sarah, the woman your brother married. And Sarah isn't a professional licensed childcare provider you can hire, and she certainly isn't family you can call for a last-minute emergency favor. Those kinds of favors are reserved for real aunts, remember? Blood. I believe that was your specific criteria." A strangled noise came through the phone. It was a mix between a gasp and a sob. You can't be serious. You're really going to hold that against me now? This is my career on the line. You're being petty and childish." "No, Brenda," I said calmly. "I'm being exactly what you told me to be. Your brother's wife. Nothing more. My relationship with Liam is exactly what you dictated it should be. I'm sorry, but my babysitting services are part of the auntie package, which you officially canceled. You should try calling your husband's sister. She's a real aunt, after all. I truly hope you find someone." And with that, I hung up. My heart was pounding in my chest, a mixture of adrenaline and vindication. It felt good, terrifyingly good. My phone immediately started ringing again. Brenda's name flashed on the screen. I ignored it. It rang again, ignored. Then, a minute later, a new name popped up. Mark. My husband. My stomach dropped. Of course. She'd gone straight to him. I took a deep breath and answered, "Sarah? What in the world is going on?" Mark's voice was tight with stress. "Brenda just called me, completely hysterical. She said she has the interview of a lifetime and you're refusing to watch Liam out of spite. She said you threw some barbecue in her face. What is she talking about?" I sank onto a kitchen chair, the triumphant feeling draining away, replaced by a weary dread. I calmly recounted the entire conversation from the barbecue months ago. I told him every single word Brenda had said to me, how I wasn't a real aunt, how I was just a role player, how I was to insist his nephew call me by my first name. I explained how it had broken my heart and how I had honored her wishes, pulling back just as she'd demanded. Mark was quiet on the other end of the line. For a moment I thought he understood. For a moment I thought he would take my side. "Wow," he said finally, and I held my breath. I had no idea she said all that, Sarah. That's awful." She was completely out of line. Relief washed over me. "Thank you," I breathed. "So you get it. You understand why I couldn't just—" "I do," he cut in, his voice shifting. "I absolutely get why you're upset. But listen, honey, this is Brenda we're talking about. She gets ideas in her head. But right now she's in a real jam, and this job is a massive opportunity for her family. Can't you just be the bigger person here? For me? The bigger person? I asked, my voice dangerously low. The last vestiges of relief curdled into ice in my stomach. The bigger person, Mark? I have been the bigger person for months. I bit my tongue so hard I'm surprised it didn't bleed when your sister delegitimized my role in our family. I swallowed my hurt every single time Liam looked at me with confusion when I corrected him. I have done exactly what she demanded, at my own emotional expense, to keep the peace. And now you want me to be the bigger person by letting her use me as a doormat? It's not being a doormat, Sarah. It's helping family in a crisis, he insisted, his voice taking on that placating tone I hated, the one he used when he wanted a problem to just go away. Look, what she said was wrong, 100%. We'll talk about it later. I'll talk to her, I promise. But right now, she's going to miss this interview. This is about Liam. Don't punish a little kid because you're angry with his mom. That was a low blow, and he knew it. He knew my love for Liam was my greatest weakness. Don't you dare put this on Liam, I shot back, my voice rising. I am not the one punishing him. Brenda is the one who used him as a pawn in her little power games. She's the one who decided my relationship with him wasn't valid. She built this wall, Mark, not me. I'm just refusing to be the one to tear it down for her convenience. She's my sister, he said, his voice now strained with frustration. She's family. Sometimes that means we have to suck it up and do things we don't want to do. And I am your wife. The words ripped out of me, raw and full of a pain that had been building for longer than just a few months. Doesn't that count? Doesn't my dignity count? Your sister drew a line in the sand, Mark. She told me my place, and it was outside the circle. All I'm doing is respecting the boundaries she created. You can't ask me to be an outsider one day and a built-in emergency service the next. It doesn't work that way. There was a heavy sigh on the other end of the line. So this is your final answer? You're really not going to do it? Yes, I said, the word tasting like iron. That is my final answer. Fine, he said, his voice cold. Fine. But you should know my parents are on their way back into town. They cut their trip short. Brenda called them after she called me, hysterical. They'll be there in about 20 minutes to watch Liam, so she's not going to miss her interview thanks to them. But I imagine we'll all be having a very interesting family dinner this weekend. He hung up before I could even process what he'd said. My in-laws. She had called her parents and painted me as the villain. My mother-in-law, Joan, was a formidable woman who believed family over everything was the 11th commandment. I could already picture the narrative Brenda had spun. Poor, overwhelmed Brenda, just trying to better her family's life, being cruelly stonewalled by her petty, vindictive sister-in-law. My side of the story wouldn't matter. The context wouldn't matter. All they would see was me, refusing to help in a moment of need. The next few days were silent. Mark was distant, sleeping on the couch, leaving for work before I woke up. The air in our house was thick with unspoken resentment. I felt sick with anxiety, replaying the conversations over and over in my head, questioning if I'd done the right thing. Then Friday came. Mark walked into the kitchen as I was making coffee, avoiding my eyes. "Mom just texted," he said flatly. "Dinner at their place tonight, 7 o'clock. She says it's mandatory." My blood ran cold. This wasn't a dinner. It was an ambush. It was a tribunal, and I was the one on trial. All day my stomach was in knots. I pictured the scene. Brenda, looking put upon and saintly. My father-in-law, looking disappointed. And Joan sitting at the head of the table like a queen, ready to pass judgment. When we arrived, the atmosphere was even worse than I'd imagined. Brenda rushed to hug Mark, shooting me a triumphant, teary-eyed look over his shoulder. The air was thick with tension. We sat down to eat, the silence broken only by the clinking of silverware. Finally, after the main course was cleared, Joan folded her hands on the table, fixed her steely gaze on me, and spoke. "Sarah," she began, her voice calm, but carrying the weight of an executioner, "we are very disappointed in you." Brenda told us what happened. We raised our children to understand that family helps family, no matter what. You put your pride before the well-being of your nephew and the career of your sister-in-law. We need to know what you have to say for yourself. I took a slow, deliberate sip of water, setting the glass down with a soft click that seemed to echo in the tense silence. Every eye at the table was on me. Mark wouldn't meet my gaze. He was staring intently at his empty plate. Brenda had a look of smug vindication on her face. This was her moment, the final nail in the coffin of my legitimacy in this family. "I understand you're disappointed," I began, my voice even and steady, betraying none of the turmoil raging inside me. "And I'm sure the story Brenda told you was very compelling. But I think you're missing some crucial context." I turned my head slightly to look directly at Brenda. "Brenda, why don't you tell them? Tell them the full story. Tell them about the barbecue last summer." Brenda's smug expression faltered. A flicker of panic entered her eyes. I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't you?" I pressed on, my voice gaining strength. "Don't you remember pulling me aside while I was playing with Liam? Don't you remember telling me, and I quote, that I am not his real aunt? That a real aunt is blood? That I was just a role player who was confusing him?" I looked at my mother-in-law. She told me to stop allowing Liam to call me auntie. She instructed me to correct him. to insist he call me Sarah. She explicitly defined my role in this family as an outsider, just the woman her brother married. So I did exactly what I was told. I respected her wishes. I took a step back. Joan's eyes widened slightly. She looked from me to a now pale Brenda. My father-in-law cleared his throat, looking uncomfortable. I loved Liam like he was my own, I continued, my voice thick with emotion now, but still controlled. Being his auntie was one of the greatest joys of my life. And you, I said, locking eyes with Brenda, took that away from me with a few cruel, calculated words. You drew a very clear boundary. You cannot draw a boundary and then get angry when I refuse to cross it just because it's suddenly convenient for you. You don't get to define me as not family and then demand a family favor. The anti-package, as I told you on the phone, includes emergency babysitting. The Just Sarah package does not. You canceled my subscription. The room was utterly silent. Brenda was stammering, trying to form words, but nothing came out. She looked to Mark for help, but he was finally looking at me, and for the first time in days I saw not anger, but a dawning realization in his eyes. My father-in-law finally spoke, his voice deep and serious. "Brenda, is this true? Did you say those things to Sarah?" Brenda burst into tears, not the triumphant, manipulative tears from before, but genuine, panicked sobs. I was jealous," she cried out. "He loves you so much, and I felt like I was losing him to you. It was a stupid, horrible thing to say. I didn't mean it." "But you did mean it, Brenda," I said softly. "You meant it enough to enforce it for months. And what's worse," I turned to Mark, "is that when I told you what she said, your first instinct wasn't to defend your wife, but to ask me to be the bigger person and cater to the person who hurt me. You were ready to throw me under the bus to keep the peace." Mark flinched as if I'd slapped him. "You're right," he said, his voice hoarse. "Sarah, I am so sorry. I should have stood by you. I let Brenda's drama take priority over your feelings, and that was wrong. Completely wrong." Joan looked at her daughter, her expression no longer disappointed in me, but in Brenda. "What you did, Brenda, was cruel and unacceptable. You owe Sarah a profound apology, and we," she said, looking at her husband and Mark, "owe her one too, for not seeing the full picture and for making you feel like you were on trial." Brenda, through her tears, finally looked at me and whispered, "I'm sorry, Sarah. I am so, so sorry. I was wrong. It wasn't a magic wand. The hurt didn't just disappear, but it was a start." Dinner ended with a stilted but sincere apology from everyone at the table. The ride home with Mark was quiet, but it was a comfortable silence filled with unspoken understanding. When we got home, he took my hand. "I promise," he said, "I will never let you feel like you have to fight a battle with my family alone again. You are my wife. You come first." Things are different now. Brenda is making a real effort. It's awkward sometimes, but the respect is there. And the best part? A few days after the dinner, we were all at my in-laws' house again. Liam came running up to me, a picture he'd drawn in his hand. "Look," he said, holding it up. It was a wobbly drawing of two stick figures. "It's you and me," he said proudly. "My best friend." And then he threw his arms around my legs and yelled, loud and clear for everyone to hear, "I love you, Auntie Sarah." I looked over at Brenda. She met my gaze, and this time she smiled. A real, genuine smile. And I smiled back.